for you. So let's start with Brendan Keefe in the newsroom for us tonight. So Brendan, we're talking about these numbers that are coming in. What are you seeing so far?
Natisha, what we're seeing is the numbers come in a lot faster than we did on the November 3rd election. And why is that? Well, it's because of that rule that the Secretary of State put in that essentially said that those absentee ballots, the sort of, in advance absentee ballots, those have to be processed before Election Day. Before that was an option, now it's a requirement. And they couldn't be counted until 7 tonight, but we're starting to see a lot more numbers come in. That's been a very interesting development. You know, when you're looking at this number and you say, oh, look, Fulton's blue, but then Henry County's red, that wasn't the same way last time. Look, these are not significant numbers yet to draw any kind of conclusions at this point, except the one thing we can't see, the thing that's blind to us right now is, are these absentee ballots that are showing up here, these numbers that are being reported, are they in-person votes today? Because remember, when they're done today, those essentially are put on a flashcard. Then they're uploaded to the Secretary of State's office. We could be getting those first and not the absentee ballots, not the in-person early absentee voting, as they call it. They call it absentee even though it's in-person early voting. What we do know is more than 3 million people showed up to vote early, and in addition to those absentee ballots, we're expecting around another million or more today. That's 4 million votes for a runoff election. But right now, there's just too much. Every one of these counties that's gray, they have not reported a single result. Any of those that are colored in, the ones that are red and redder, are going to be those more conservative-leaning counties, and the ones that are blue and then bluer, of course, are going to be your Democratic-leading counties. One more note before we go leave. 54-45, 54-45, we're not seeing ticket splitting. So Warnock and Ossoff are going to be tracking like Loeffler and Perdue are tracking. They're probably the same voters at this point.
That's interesting because a lot of people were thinking it would be a split. Maybe one goes Democrat, the other one goes Republican. I'm seeing some tweets from Gabriel Sterling, who works with the Secretary of State's office. He's saying that there were about 95,000 uploaded for absentee ballots in Fulton County and 92,000 in DeKalb County. Are you seeing that reflected in your numbers? Yeah, what's really interesting is in DeKalb County is we're looking essentially at a higher turnout for a runoff election than we saw for the general election. That is saying that at least in DeKalb County, the sort of get out the vote push has been successful. I don't know about you. I've gotten so many mailers enough that I don't need to buy firewood this year. No kidding.
I've got enough to heat the home. And of course, our commercials, keeping the lights on here, that has been a constant thing. But it seems to have worked. Now look at this split at this point. This is really early, but DeKalb went strongly for the Democrats last time. The same is happening here tonight. And if there are more voters in an area that's going to lean that way, but we also are going to see maybe some turnout in these deeper red counties. So look at the difference. We're talking about 2 different Georgias living side by side. All right, and we do know that Raphael Warnock spent a lot of time in the rural counties, so we'll see what happens there. Thanks, Brendan. Well, we will keep you updated on the latest results throughout the night, and we will also have them on 11alive.com. But to get them sent straight to your phone, just text the word result to the number you see right there on your screen. It is 404-885-7600.
We have heard from the Secretary of State's office this evening as voting was wrapping up, and John Chiric joins us live from Atlanta. He has the very latest. John, the election going pretty smoothly today. You know, this is really different from what we experienced in June when there were so many compliments. The Secretary of State's office expects the vote counting to be complete perhaps in the next day or so at the latest, partly because there were so relatively few problems, minor problems, that were fixed quickly. Now, right now, counties are uploading all of their data from the scanned in-person ballots. Counties have already nearly completed scanning the mail-in absentee ballots that have come in. Now, about 250,000 absentees were still outstanding, and Gabriel Sterling of the Secretary of State's office says he expects to know by tomorrow how many absentee ballots in all were returned to add to the overall totals.
We'll really know tomorrow by 1 o'clock. We've asked, because we can't direct the counties, to have all of their stuff, at least so we get the outward bound of what they have received by 1 p.m. tomorrow. The majority of the counties ought to be done by really tomorrow for certain. A lot of them will be done tonight because they're smaller counties. They can probably process some of these, but they are also dog tired. I mean, most of these counties met since 4 in the morning, so directing them to stay, do their signature match, and scan those last ones in after they've had a full day today, it will, I think, just in a real life world, they're going to come in tomorrow morning fresh and try to finish that up.
Now, Gabriel Sterling said he expects to know maybe later tonight exactly how the turnout was today, how many people actually voted today on this final day of voting. And he'll be interested to know if maybe another 1 million people voted today to add to the 3.1 million Georgians who already voted in this runoff. And again, that's a record. The previous record for a runoff election in Georgia was 2.1 million votes. We've already reached 3.1 million with today's vote totals to be added to that.
All right, John, thank you. While preparing for the runoff, the Secretary of State's office also is fielding lawsuits from the Trump campaign. Today, a federal judge rejected the latest lawsuit filed against Georgia's general election results. The suit was filed on December 31st. It aimed to decertify the state's results. Reports indicate the suit's motion for a preliminary injunction was denied on grounds of standing and jurisdiction.
Our team coverage continues now following the race between Senator Kelly Loeffler and Reverend Raphael Warnock, but we're going to start with Doug Richards, who is in Atlanta, who is waiting to hear from the incumbent throughout the night. So Doug, it looks like there's more people there than the last time we spoke to you.
Definitely more people here. I guess this is really the only political election party in town, right? Because the Democrats are doing theirs virtually. Perdue and Loeffler have combined their forces here at the Hyatt in Buckhead. And there's probably a couple hundred people here, which sounds like a lot. It's a big room, so I'm feeling fairly safe, if you wanted to know the answer to that question. And the thing is, not only is there a ton of media here, but there is also a lot of volunteers here. I talked to a lady who came here 8 days ago from San Antonio, Texas, and she said she's been living in Atlanta ever since then, and she has spent the entire 8 days doing the bidding of the campaigns in terms of a volunteer effort. And she says that she's been knocking on doors. She spent a lot of those times knocking on doors in Democratic neighborhoods. So as a result, she came out of this feeling only cautiously optimistic, she said. She says she's rather nervous, actually, about what's going to happen once the votes are counted. And one of the reasons for that may be because she said she actually spent all day today, election day, in neighborhoods in northeast Atlanta on the Cheshire Bridge Road communities, trying to get folks out of their houses to go vote. And of course, that's an area where there are a lot of Democrats there, so if you're a Republican volunteer, you might feel a little discouraged about what you saw on the ground there. So, you know, there's a lot of energy in the room. They're seeing results that are very close. They expected that, and they know that there's been this whole issue of Republicans self-suppressing their votes potentially because of issues that have been raised about the legitimacy of the last election and potentially this election as well. And folks I've talked to have said, yes, I hope that this election is legitimate. It has to be more legitimate than the last one. That's the sense that I have gotten from folks here. And the folks here are not sort of the extreme folks that we have read about who are really challenging the November election. These are more party insiders, more volunteers, more people who have really got a commitment to the party apparatus, and so there may be less fervor in that regard here than you might see out in the news and in, say, the rally with President Trump last night in Dalton. So that's my report. Back to you.
All right, Doug, thank you. Now let's go to Hope Ford, who is following Reverend Warnock's campaign tonight. So Hope, we see Doug, who's at this big party that's going on at a hotel ballroom. What is Reverend Warnock doing tonight for his campaign?
Well, he's been doing everything virtually as far as interviews with the media. They are not holding any type of party, him or also not really holding any type of in-person event tonight. But they did go throughout the day today at different stops across Georgia to talk to voters. But as far as tonight, they've kept everything pretty virtual so far. And, you know, I was able to talk to Warnock a little bit earlier today, and he told me that the drama throughout this election has been interesting, such as Senator Loeffler, his opponent, commenting yesterday that she would object to the Electoral College vote. Now, Warnock said that to him, it is a little bit disturbing that there are still some members of Congress who are questioning the results from the general election.
It's deeply concerning to see folks who should know better trying to undermine that very basic idea of our democracy. We need senators who understand that and who will try to strengthen the people's voices through voting rights and not try to diminish the people's voices by casting aspersions on the integrity of our elections.
Now, Warnock didn't mention any senator by name whenever he talked to me about this earlier this afternoon, but he did say that the country, in his opinion, can't afford to continue to be divided, and he hopes that a win for him and for Ossoff as well means that they will be able to start working on unifying the country, as well as working on several issues that they've talked about throughout the campaign, including COVID relief, health care, criminal justice reform, and reinvigorating the economy.
All right, Hope Ford in Midtown for us tonight. Thank you, Hope. Also on the ticket, Republican David Perdue defending his seat in the U.S. Senate from Democrat Jon Ossoff. We will have the latest on their campaigns in the next half hour.
Still to come in prime time, the latest on one of the biggest issues facing tonight's winning candidates in the Senate, COVID-19 vaccinations and a frightening new variant of that virus now in our state.
And as we go to break, let's take another look at the latest results coming into our newsroom. You see that it is Raphael Warnock ahead of Kelly Loeffler, at least right now, but it's only 7% of the precincts reporting so far, so we still have a long ways to go, and Jon Ossoff slightly ahead of David Perdue, as you see right there as well. So we will keep you updated on those numbers as they continue to change throughout the night. And also, don't forget, we are streaming right now on the 11 Alive YouTube channel. You can subscribe and join the conversation in the community section.